Nemo Radio is on the air.
A, B, C. A, always B, B, C, closing. Always be closing. Always be closing.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Put that coffee down. Coffee's for closers only. Come after me! I'm a man! I'm 40!
Hey, it's John Nemo. Welcome back to another episode of Nemo Radio. I want to start today with something that just kind of shocked me. I was perusing through LinkedIn and getting ready to talk to a prospect for our done-for-you lead generation services. And I looked at the person's LinkedIn feed, as I often do, and it was just filled with political posts. And I was like, whoa. So I literally found it 1 minute before the call. And so I thought, oh gosh, do I even take the call? And again, the whole lesson behind this and I want to tell you what the person said, which was also fascinating, but the whole idea behind this, and I had to learn this years and years and years ago, is kind of the real temptation with social media just to instantly publish every idiot thought we have. Right? Every take, every opinion, every just random thought, every angry word, you can now just instantly post it. Or even better, or maybe even worse, you can just hit repost or retweet or share when someone else perfectly expresses your righteous indignation about something. And what I have found is, I have to come back to a core lesson that my business coach taught me, over a decade ago. And he said, John, as a business owner, as someone who does sales online, as someone who is a personal brand, you now forfeit the right to use social media like other people do. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, if you start posting political stuff, you're instantly going to eliminate half of your prospects. Half your audience will disagree with you. Half of them will hate you. Half might love you, but you're cutting your legs out from under yourself. If you post, other rants about whatever social issues or things you're passionate about, whether good, misguided, or otherwise, you're going to turn people off. And that was exactly what happened to me being in the shoes of a person interviewing this prospect, because thankfully I'm in a place with my business where, and I take this kind of leverage on a sales call where I basically say, hey, thanks so much for connecting. Glad you're interested in our services. Just so you know, I say it in a nicer way, but I basically say, just so you know, I don't take on every single person that wants to work with us. And the reason being, and the leverage I have, is I do it personally. So I have changed my business model back with my Nemo Media Group with our agency, where I personally do your strategy. I personally rewrite your profile. I personally write your content. So if it's an ebook, if it's, a webinar, whatever, I've just taken that back on because for a lot of reasons, but basically because I haven't found someone yet, and I've tried for a couple of years to be able to do it better than me. And I found too that I really like that part of the job. So I really like it. I really enjoy getting deep, getting to know a prospect, getting to know their story, and then using my kind of skill in writing and storytelling to tell that at a high level. And that's my background, right? I was a journalist for 20 years. I've written 8 books. I love it. I love storytelling. I love writing. I love creativity. So anyway, long story short, not to get off on a tangent of why I still do my own creative work for clients, I basically can say that to that prospect. So this call, 1 minute before I get on, it's just, I look at their feed on LinkedIn and I'm like, whoa, like this person seems really angry. And there's a lot of angry posts and a lot of, political division. And again, if you're international, I live in America, in the United States. So not sure if you're aware of this. We've got a very divisive political climate. You're either, it's become this thing where you're all or nothing, right? You're either this or that. And again, I'm not political. I don't really care. I have strong opinions, of course. I don't like any of the candidates. How's that? I don't like any of them. But anyway, long story short, I'm not going to lose business over, in the current situation, Joe Biden or Donald Trump. I'm just not. Like, it's not worth it to me to give my take on Donald Trump or Joe Biden and lose business over it, because what happens with political is, there's a reason your parents said growing up, no religion or politics at the dinner table, right? It's too divisive. So I will post about religion sometimes because I am a Jesus guy. I love Jesus. And I've told my business coach, I'm like, I don't care if I lose followers over Jesus because I love him. And that's way more important to me. And I try to post about Jesus in a way where it's very much about grace and about what I love about him and not condemnation or, all the negative stuff. There's enough Christians acting like complete idiots and alienating. And I'm going off on tangents here, but there's enough Christians who are just doing terrible things and condemning others in the name of Jesus. Like, if you really know Jesus, it's 100% grace. It's 100% forgiveness. I don't care what you want to say as far as, well, that behavior's a sin and that one's a sin. Like, everything, is a sin. So I post about Jesus and his love and his grace and his forgiveness because that's what I need in my life. Because, memo to the world, I'm a broken person. You are too. And I love that about him. And I love that he's the only version of God. I'm riffing too much here. And so I've always tried to be very, very careful about that. Now, I will post sometimes about Jesus, who's my hero, and I love him. And I try to do it in a very non-condemning way because, memo to all the people that don't know this, Jesus never condemned anybody. He didn't condemn others. He didn't say that behavior is so bad. He forgave everyone everywhere. He's the man. I love him. I need him in my life as a broken person who struggles, and we all struggle with sin every single day. If you don't, you're lying to yourself. So anyway, I'm a big Jesus guy. I'll post about him sometimes, just my own personal journey, my own life. But I'm not afraid if I lose a client over sharing Jesus. Like, that's okay. Like, it's okay. I'm trying to do a good thing. But I don't want to lose clients over politics, over sports, over social issues that I want to have this big thing on. And also too, especially with a platform like LinkedIn, people aren't there to listen to that stuff. Like, they can go to Facebook and Twitter and wherever else to get that. And to the credit of this prospect, what's so interesting was I immediately came into the call basically judging this person from their online posts. And, this is something we say to people all the time. I say it to my kids. You say it to college kids, high school kids, like, hey, be careful what you're posting on social media. Like, you're going to get judged by this. Employers are going to judge you. Clients are going to judge you. Prospects are going to judge you. People are going to Google you and look at your stuff. And you see this all the time. Like, the latest controversy where I live is one of the pro sports teams. They just drafted a player, and the player was sharing tweets and liking tweets that were anti a certain group of people. And it blew up and it became this big controversy. And should they have drafted this person? Look, they're ripping on this other, group of people in society, and they're being very mean spirited about it. And then the player, of course, had to come in and do the whole backpedal. Well, I didn't really mean it. You kind of shared these posts for a long period of time. Well, no, I'm not like that at all. I'm not, I have friends that are part of that world. Okay, whatever. But anyway, the whole point is, you get judged by what you post on social media, fair or foul. People don't know the whole story. So when I got on the call with this prospect, immediately all I could think about was, how do I get off the call? And what was really interesting was, they started in and they started talking about all this stuff. And a few minutes in, I was just, I'm sorry, I got to just stop you here. I don't know that you would be a good fit for me. And they're like, what do you mean? And I was like, well, there's a huge red flag with you. And again, I had started the call, and this is a good tactical thing. I started the call with leverage. Listen, I'm not here to pitch you and sell you. I don't work with everyone who wants to work with me. You have to be a good mutual fit. I win or lose based on client selection. So I'm going to grill you as much as you grill me. And I do it with humor, but it kind of puts them back as oh, I don't get to just treat you like you have to work with me and I'll decide whether or not yes or no. So that's always a really good leverage point for people. It doesn't necessarily make them defensive, but it kind of makes them go, oh, we're equals here. They aren't just a vendor who's desperate for my business and will say anything and, just wants my money. And I think people respect that because they're like, you're honest. That the guy said that to me a couple times in the call. So anyway, I said, I don't know that you're a good fit. There's kind of some red flags with you that I would have to process if I was going to work with you and take you on as a client. So of course, when they get called out, they're like, well, what are you talking about? And I said, well, I looked at your LinkedIn feed 1 minute before the call, and it's all political stuff. And again, I said, I don't care. I'm not political really one way or another. But you're immediately, if I take you on as a client and you're posting that stuff, half of our prospects are gone. You've literally cut in half your ability to win people over. And people might think you're super angry because, again, they can misread the tone because a lot of these things are angry, agitating kind of content because that's the state of American politics, right? So, and the person was like, yeah, I know better. And I was like, oh, okay, you're not a psycho. And I literally said this to a prospect on a call. We'll see if they become a client. But I literally said, oh, good. Well, you're not a psycho then. And they laughed, because again, I'm funny. I'm a goofball. I'm like, well, it's good to know you're not a psycho because the stuff you're posting was like, whoa, And basically they said, yeah, I know better. I just got sucked into it and I got mad and I got emotional. So and the person, to their credit, tons of self-awareness, said, I know better because LinkedIn's a business platform. People aren't on LinkedIn to see my political takes. And the person said, I used to do a lot more posting about business and business concepts and sharing articles and sharing my thoughts. And I was like, yeah, that's the stuff. Like, that's what they're there for, right? You can share, LinkedIn, you can be effective sharing parts of your journey and your personal life and, tying it to a business lesson. I give that formula out all the time and it works really well of, personal story plus business lesson equals content. So there's nothing wrong with sharing your real life, your authentic life, your passions. It's just tie it to a business lesson. There's not really anything in a political rant that you can tie to a business lesson, at least not in a way that's not going to offend people, right? Because people are going to argue about how valid your political take is and is it true, is it not true? So anyway, to their credit, I was like, oh, okay, well, you're not a psycho. Okay, let's keep going. And then what was interesting was just kind of processing that and seeing, yeah, man, I got to look at my own social media. I don't normally post anything anyway, but it was just a good reminder to be careful. Even I do sometimes post stuff maybe on other channels, Twitter, Facebook, whatever, where it's a little more, it's mostly sports stuff. But again, I go back to I've wanted to post political stuff plenty of times when I'm really upset and frustrated and emotional. And that's where I'll hear my business coach's voice in my head, thank God, going, you don't get to do that. And I think that's the lesson for you and me. If you're listening, if you're a small business owner, a coach, a consultant, franchise consultant, whatever it is you do, sales, if you're in any kind of business and you have a personal brand and if you use social media in any way, shape, or form for business, people are going to look at all your posts, right? Before they hire you, before they engage you. And this person did that with me. They're like, yeah, I've been looking at all your stuff. And it either attracts them or it repels them. And I think staying away from that controversial stuff, especially religion and politics, per se, really helps you. Because again, if you're just sharing value, but also finding a way to put your story in, it can really do a lot to enhance your personal brand instead of hurt it. And I think what's interesting is some people thrive off controversy. Some people love that and they just want attention. And it's been really interesting with my teenage sons because they'll bring up to me like, well, so-and-so's famous on TikTok for this or on YouTube for that or on, whatever. And I'm like, yeah, they're really good at getting attention, but, and maybe they can monetize that with ads on those platforms. But at the end of the day, they're also alienating a whole lot of people. And at the end of the day too, like, do you really want to be that person? Like, that's the other piece of it. Like, if you build a brand based off controversy, and how do you do controversy? Well, you say really outrageous things that are going to offend and hurt people's feelings. Like, do you really want to build a brand that way where you're known for offending people and hurting people's feelings? Because I'm like, you watch these guys and they're basically like cartoon characters. They're playing a character on YouTube. Yes, they're a real human being. But that was a big eye-opener for me, too, when I met some people at a mastermind years ago when I was first getting started that were, in my mind, famous on YouTube, famous on podcasts, famous on Twitter. And one of them said to me, oh, no, I just play a character on social media. That's not really who I am. And I met the person, and in real life, they were a huge introvert and, real shy. And I'm like, man, your social media is not at all like that. You're outrageous and bombastic and yelling. And they're like, yeah, I just play a character. Like that's to get clicks and get business. And a great lesson I learned at that point that my business coach helped me with was there's going to be a disconnect for that person, right? Because again, if your social media doesn't reflect the real life you and your real life personality and your real life sense of humor and communication style, people are going to meet you, especially if they want to do business with you, and they're going to have this disconnect. Like, wait a minute, you're a phony, you're a fraud, you're not the real person. And that's where that phrase comes, be careful about wanting to meet your heroes, right? And you have, if you paint this perfect persona, this perfect image, that's another one. And then in real life, you're not that person. There's just a lot of things that can go wrong. And for me, what I've tried to do with social media is another tangent, is just try to be myself, like share wins, share losses, share lessons learned, share tales from the trenches, share insights, share ideas, share the journey, personal stories plus business lessons. And I think what it's done, and what it even did on this call with this prospect, was they said, well, I really like you. You're authentic. You're honest. You're just telling me how you feel. You're being straight with me. They said, I talked to so many other LinkedIn agencies that I don't feel a connection to. This person said, I don't feel a warm fuzzy, is what they kept saying. Like, I don't feel like you're a real person. You're really like, they're like, I know they're just going to hand me off to someone and it's just a salesperson. They don't really care about me. And I think that's that key part of sales, is that human connection, that one-on-one like bond. And you can do so much of that now through social media, but you got to do it carefully. Like if you build it the wrong way, you're going to repel people who are just like, I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole. And that's what I told this client. I said, like, I wouldn't take you on as a client, regardless of whether I agree or disagree with your politics. Like, that's just going to be really hard for lead generation, because people are going to get invites from you or look at your profile and they're going to see underneath most recent activity, and it's all these, political rants. I'm like, it's going to kill you. It's going to kill your brand. It's going to kill trust. People are going to be like, I don't want the drama. And they're like, wow, you're right. Okay. So it's just interesting. I wanted to record a quick podcast about that because I know it plays such a huge role. And it's just a great reminder. I love that line from my coach. You and I have forfeited the right to use social media like normal people. Which is probably a good thing, because one of the things I think that has made our, country so divisive is just everyone can publish every thought and every stupid, thing we want to say at scale. And it used to not reach everyone. Right. And of course, I'm sure countless people regret publishing dumb stuff, but it follows them forever. Right. And so for you and me, it's just a good lesson to like, take a breath, walk away. If you still feel that way in 15 minutes, then publish it. Otherwise, delete. Drafts can be your best thing. And I'll end on this funny story. I got fired for sending an angry email. I got fired at the height of the U.S. recession in 2008-09 because I was part of a team at it was a debt collection agency company. What do you call it? Come on, I'll come up with the word, trade association. There we go. So they were the trade association for all the debt collectors around the United States. And so I was the PR guy. I had won a bunch of awards. I got our association, our members, featured on CNN and NBC and Fox News. And I literally won tons of awards and thought I was, nobody could touch me as far as performance. I got a bunch of raises. I was doing great. And this was a great business lesson, not at the time, but in long term it is. I was pushing really hard in 2008, 2009 to have our trade association, our members, use these new tools called social media. I really wanted to get active on Facebook and Twitter. And the old guard at the trade association was like, nope, we have to have a lawyer review every tweet. You can't just publish your thoughts. Like, you can't just, it's the Wild West out there with social media. You can't just go out and, publish things. You don't know what's going to happen. We need attorneys to review everything. And I was also had, this won't shock you, like being inside a company, internal politics and rivalries with other people, right, who were doing similar jobs. And I remember one of the people that I butted heads with a lot, who did a different area of communications, kind of baited me on a group email, and it was the whole executive team was on it. So I hit reply all, and I was angry and emotional, upset, and I wrote, let's just call a spade. Like, you don't want me to succeed and blah, 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 blah. And you're trying to hold me back. Like, it was terrible. And what was so funny about it, this was, again, the burgeoning days of social media. So I didn't publish it, but I wrote it. I basically responded. I didn't swear or anything, but I felt really good. Had righteous indignation. And of course, history's on my side. Of course, we should have been using social media. Just like you could argue now, if you're at a company that's saying today in 2024, 2025, don't use artificial intelligence, you'll be on the right side of history if you argue for it. Just like I was on the right side of history in 2008, arguing that we should use social media. But again, tone is everything and written word is everything. So the whole executive team got that. One of my friends in the office who's on the executive team walked in and said, are you okay? And I'm like, what do you mean? I'm fine. And they're like, that email sounded like you're going to kill the guy. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I didn't swear. I didn't say it. They're like, it just, dude, you better like go talk to the CEO, because that could get read very wrong. And I was like, oh, okay. And that was a Friday afternoon. I got fired Monday morning. And all that performance, I had literally just won a bunch of national awards. I had just gotten a $15,000 raise. all of it didn't mean anything because of the way that one post, that one email was interpreted. And people were like, that's drama. That's whatever. He's not, blah, blah, blah. Out the door I went. By the way, that was at the height of the recession when nobody could get a job. We were still about $30,000 in debt. We had no savings. I had my wife at home with our 3 young boys and no backup. And so I came home Monday morning after I got fired, humiliated, and thank goodness our boys were like at preschool or something. And I slumped down. I'll never forget this. I slumped down on the kitchen floor next to the refrigerator and just bawled and just cried. I was like, oh my God, what have I done? We're screwed. It's the recession. Nobody can get work. We have all this debt. And it was really dark and it was awful. Right. And that was a regret. I've never forgotten that lesson. Like I've probably written angry emails since then, but I've hopefully deleted them or kept them in drafts. And my wife, God love her, she's like, why didn't you put it in drafts? Like, she's the cooler head. I'm a hothead. And what was interesting was the good postscript to the story is that at the time I was all over social media and I was all over trying all these new channels, including LinkedIn. And so within a week, because of the creative methods I was using with social media and being forward thinking, I got a job offer right away, which was unheard of for an agency, a marketing agency, but it was a $20,000 pay cut. So I was like, I don't care. I'll take it. I got to feed my kids. You got it. And then that was on Thursday. I was supposed to start Monday at the new place. Accepted the offer, like, okay, shook hands. Thank God I lost 20 grand, painful lesson, but at least I can feed my kids. Friday morning, I get a call from another place I had applied. And they said, yeah, we're interested in bringing you in for an interview. And I said, oh, man, well, unless I'm the number one candidate, there's probably nothing to talk about. I just accepted another job. And they said, hold on. And they said, yeah, you're the number one candidate. Can you come in right now? It's like, sure. So I went in and I had nothing to lose because I already had this other job. And I rocked the interview. And I had put together this preemptive thing with all these ideas for each place I wanted to work, with a bunch of forward-thinking ideas. And I was already putting video on my LinkedIn profile, which was unheard of in 2008. You could use a hack with Google Docs and YouTube and all these things. So I had videos playing. I had a video resume in 2008, which nobody had a video resume because people don't know how to do it, right? But I made all these things. So I really stood out from the competition. So I went into this interview and rocked the interview. And they're like, okay, well, what's it going to take to get you here? And I was like, well, I'm supposed to start another job Monday. What do you think? And they're like, well, here's the deal. It was a labor union. It was a Minnesota Nurse Association. And they said, we basically have slotted, pay grades for each job. And the range for this is X to Y. And I thought, well, what do I have to lose? I asked for Y, which was the top. And they're like, well, I can't do Y, but I can do a little bit below it. Like we can't bring you at the absolute top of the pay scale, but yeah, we'll do that. And I'm like, okay, great. And I acted like that was no big deal. And I said, I'll let the other place know. And what ends up happening is I go home and I tell my wife, well, now I have 2 jobs. Job 1 was a $20,000 pay cut. Job 2, which I just accepted, will actually be about a $25,000 raise from the job I just got fired from. And it'll be 40 grand more than job 1. So I was like, I'm taking job 2. So I called the guy at job 1 and was like, hey, I'm really sorry, but like, I got to do the best thing for my family. They're offering $40,000 more. That person was really mad. But they also, I think, understood, like, you got to do what's best for you. Right. And I hadn't started there or anything like that. They were just disappointed. So then I started job 2 and with a raise, and the rest is history. But again, all that ties back to one angry post that cost me my job at the height of the recession, which was terrifying. So think about that for yourself with social media, with your posts there. Just being careful. And, when you evaluate people, when you look to hire people, when you look at a prospect, that's something I need to build into my process of, before I bring in a prospect and hire them as a client, do they have crazy political rants? Do they have kind of unhinged conspiracy theory things? This person didn't, but I'm just saying out loud. Because that would be really hard to market. That would be really hard to work with. And I think, to this person's credit, they were like, yeah, you called me out. You're right. I'll clean it up. I trust you. So anyway, hope you found that helpful. That was definitely a fun exercise. Appreciate you so much for listening, and we'll see you soon on another episode.